parent. So it's not just Pornhub, right? Pornhub is owned by a parent company that all of this kind of I learned over the last 5 years, called MindGeek. Now, MindGeek has a monopoly on the global big porn industry. So we call it big porn because there's big porn, just like there's big tobacco, there's big pharma, there's big porn, and it's dominated by one company. That company was called MindGeek. They rebranded to ILO to try to escape their reputation as peddlers of crime. But so with a $362 million loan from a hedge fund called Colbeck Capital and 125 secret investors who were outed as including JP Morgan Chase and Cornell University. They had basically rolled up the entire global porn industry under one company.
They owned it, MindGeek.
Yeah, so they owned, they were managing Playboy, Digital Playground, Wicked Pictures, Browsers, Reality Kings, pay sites, subscription sites, and then the tube sites. So the Pornhub and its sister sites. So Pornhub, YouPorn, RedTube, TubeBait, GayTube, XTube, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
They own the most popular tube site. So
Vegan Tube, is that one? That's no time for jokes. And who owns MindGeek?
So MindGeek was owned by a secret majority shareholder. So nobody knew who the owner of MindGeek was.
Why didn't they want
when
people
all of this
to know
began.
who they were?
And were they in America?
No, we found out. So we found them, through the course of this. There was an investigation called Hunt for the Porn King.
So they're not an American company. So you start on the Hunt for the Porn King.
Right. So we discovered who was the secret majority shareholder of the company, and his name was Bernd Bergmayer, and he was in Austria, and he lived part-time in Hong Kong. And
Bernd Bergmayer? Let's bring a picture of him up.
Yeah, you can.
I just want people to know
there
who
he
he
is.
is.
Yeah.
Bergmayer.
Yeah.
Let's look at his Wikipedia. I just want to get a little... He grew up as a son of farmers in Ansfelden, attended grammar school in Linz, he studied at University of Linz, wherever that is. He worked at Goldman Sachs in New York. He became the owner of porn site RedTube in 2013. He sold to the site Manwin, now known as Alyo. He was a former majority owner of Pornhub and MindGeek. Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to make sure we see him.
He was the majority, and then Feroz Antoon and David DeSillo were the CEO and the COO, and they were the minority shareholders, and they had kind of hidden themselves from the public as well for a really long time. Yep. So Canadian, so the company is an international corporation. They are headquartered in Canada, so they have most of their employees in Canada, but they have offices now they have an office in Texas, they had one LA, Cyprus, Romania,
MindGeek has offices everywhere?
Everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. So they are a multinational corporation, huge corporation, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, multi-billion-dollar corporation with a monopoly on the global big porn industry.
And how much money was it bringing in a year?
Yeah, they're estimating about $500 million per year. The value of the company is multiple billions of dollars. And Pornhub was the flagship site. So this was the cash cow of the company. This is how not only are they making money on 4.6 billion ad impressions every day and all of the traffic they're getting, but they're advertising their
4.6 billion ad a day. A day. So in 4 days, that's over 12 billion. In a week, we looking at about 50 billion advertisements being clicked and looked at.
Sites on the free sites, right? So they kind of have this ecosystem where they advertise browsers on Pornhub and drive traffic to all of the other websites that they own.
I thought it was browsers, which is crazy, but also I don't care. I mean, it's either way, it's bad.
Yeah, content is for the porn tube sites. You have to understand this, that it's about getting unrestricted, massive amounts of content so that they could get picked up in Google search results, so that they can drive massive amounts of traffic, so they can sell all those ad impressions and make hundreds of millions of dollars a year on free porn, okay? Worst thing they could do is take content down from the site. But they started to delete millions of videos. They deleted 10 million videos and over 30 million images, basically in 24 hours, and what Financial Times called probably the biggest takedown of content in internet history. They deleted all of their unverified videos because they had no idea who was a child and who was 16 and who was 18, what was rough sex and what was rape. They had no idea what was consensually recorded and non-consensually uploaded, right?
That's crazy.
And so they took down that much content
because they're worried about the money.
Yeah, they wanted to woo the credit card companies back.
Right.
Is they said, okay, we have to do this. They basically deleted their site. 80% of it at the time. They had
80%. At the time, 80% of their content was unverified, unregistered. That's crazy. That's free bread all day. They didn't even have to do nothing. That's crazy. And people want to say like this OF and cam girl and video girl and stuff isn't like manufactured. But why? Understand, if this is an industry that is thriving off of free participants, how am I going to increase the amount of free content that I can put on this site? I'm going to encourage people to believe that they should be doing this.
Moderators, 30 moderators moderating the millions of videos on Pornhub. Now compare that with Facebook's 15,000 moderators.
30 moderators moderating the content on how many, you know how many videos those people were watching a day? Oh my gosh, I could not imagine. I would not be interested in having any type of intercourse after watching that many videos every day.
And they still don't have enough. These moderators, they were viewing between 800 and 2,000 videos per shift, clicking through those videos with the sound off, just clicking through them, guessing. Like I call it the underage guessing game. Like this is a game of Russian roulette with people's lives. They're trying to guess who's 15 and who's 18, who's 16 and who's 19. Like nobody can
How do you figure
that
that
on
out?
like even a pediatrician can't do that.
Yeah, and what happens to your brain at a certain point after seeing so much traumatic stuff that you were even like that should be a crime, and putting a employee through that.
Well, I've spoken to those, and some of those employees I call friends today because they
Really? Have they said that they've seen some, it's been really intense?
Their conscience was pricked.
Oh,
and
I'm sure.
They came forward, and I've spent hours and hours in person and online and on the phone, speaking to them, trying to understand how all of this worked. And one of them is especially dear to me. And he told me that it was so hard on him to do this job, but he needed the money. And he was abused as a child. He was sexually abused as a child.
Wow.
So it was especially hard for him to do this. But I think
You almost
that's
wonder why he went and did it. It's like you could find something else to do, probably.
I mean,
not calling him out, but it's like maybe there's some weird thing that's created there too that like,
I don't know. But I appreciate what he did in coming forward.
Not
so
calling him
this is
out,
the
but calling
company.
him.
This is who we're kind of coming up against, right? And so all of this started to take off and go viral, and victims are coming forward, whistleblowers. I told you about the former owner who came forward. His name is Fabian Tillman, and he was called the Zuckerberg of porn. He's
okay,
the
let's
one.
bring him up. I just want to get a look.
You
I
wanna
want to
put
put a face to
everybody's
these
face on
guys.
blast.
Fabian Tillman.
He said, if you see these guys
looks
outside, you know
dangerous,
what
huh?
it is.
THY. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Fabian Tillman.
He's the one that put Pornhub on the map. He kind of had this vision
Guys
for
look creepy.
the German entrepreneur who once built the biggest adult entertainment company in the world. Let's see him. That's him. Fabian. Okay. So he's one of the guys schlepping it.
So he's the one who actually revealed to me who the secret majority shareholder was that he sold the company to. Yeah, he reached out in summer 2020 to say he wanted to help. And so one of the things that he did was he exposed the secret majority shareholder's name, and he said, go after the credit card companies. As the former owner, he said, if you want to make a difference here, you go after the credit card companies to cut ties. And so that was... Now, what I didn't realize at the time, I was suspicious, right? Why is he wanting to help? And I kind of later found out that he had intention to try to buy back the company. So he kind of wanted to make a killing again. So I think he wanted to help take it down, buy it, then
find a way to do it back, probably with crypto or something on a different chain.
I don't know what he was thinking, but he wanted to buy it back, which I found out later on.
He probably still
But phone the COO and the CEO were forced to resign as well. And today they're being sued by nearly 300 victims in 25 lawsuits, including multiple class actions on behalf
That's
of
not even a
tens
lot.
of thousands of child victims. And they're doing amazing in the courts. So much more evidence has been uncovered in legal discovery. So discovery is this amazing tool. Engage in a civil lawsuit. The court gives you permission to get behind your opponent. So you can get their text messages, you can get their emails, you can get, and so much has come out of the complicity. Like you just couldn't believe. The site is still online. It's been purchased now. They're trying to do this whole rebrand. So it was sold as a distressed asset to a company that they created them to buy Pornhub.
Okay.
And they are called Ethical Capital Partners.
Wow, what a name. Yeah. Ethical Capital Partners. And who are the main bigwigs in that company? How did your war against Pornhub start?
Sure. I will tell you that story.
Okay.
So in the context of years in the fight against sex trafficking, so I had been fighting sex trafficking when this began. So this began at the start of 2020. This was February 2020 when the fight to hold Pornhub accountable for rape, sex trafficking, child abuse began. And that was in the context of over a decade in the fight against trafficking at that point. And I had been paying attention to the headlines, obviously, when sexual abuse stories, trafficking stories came up. I was paying attention. And one of the stories that came up at late 2019 that really arrested my attention, it was a story of a 15-year-old girl, and she was from Broward County, Florida, and she was missing for an entire year, and she was finally found when her distraught mother was tipped off by a Pornhub user that he recognized her daughter on the site.
That's
and she
crazy.
was found in 58 videos being abused for profit. These are monetized videos. Police were dispatched and they actually rescued her out of his apartment. She had been impregnated. They got her out of that situation. But that was a story that had made some headlines, and it was a horrifying story. At the same time, there was an investigation that was released by the Sunday Times, the London Sunday Times, and they had found dozens of illegal videos on Pornhub within minutes, even children as young as 3. So these...
Dog, what? How does that even get uploaded to the site without being seen or flagged? Yo, that's crazy.
Particular stories were standing out. There was one other that was really horrifying at the time. It was about an adult, a woman named Nicole Adamando, and she was from New York. And she was being abused by her partner. She was being raped and tortured. He was filming it and he was uploading it to Pornhub, and then she ended up killing him in self-defense, but she was sentenced to life in prison, separated from her 2 young children. And thankfully, she had an amazing legal team, and they fought that and they got it reduced to 7 years, and she's finally out today. But it was just a heartbreaking story. And so at the time, I was really actually discouraged in my fight against trafficking. I had been doing it for a long time. I felt like we weren't making very much progress, but it's not something that I can quit because I'm dedicated to this. But I was up late one night in early 2020. I think it was, January 1st, 2020. And I was consoling my own crying baby at that time because he was born, he had a birth complication. He was a very mad baby.
What do you mean? Oh, crying baby.
Yeah, crying baby.
Okay.
Yeah, he was up, I was up at all hours of the night.
I thought you said crime baby. I was like, oh, what is a
Crime baby.
crime baby?
No, crying baby.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was up late consoling him and thinking about that story of the 15-year-old girl. And suddenly, an idea came to mind. I just said, you know what? How are they vetting these videos? How is this abuse ending up on Pornhub? And an idea just flashed into mind. I said, I'm going to test the upload system for myself, and I'm going to see what does it take to upload content to Pornhub. So put the baby down, got out my phone, took a video of the computer screen and the rug in the dark room, and I uploaded it to Pornhub, and I found out what millions of people already knew. Because at that time, millions of videos were being uploaded every year. In fact, the amount of content that was being uploaded to Pornhub, if you put those videos back to back, just the amount of content they would upload in 1 year, it would take 169 years to watch if you put those videos back to back. That's how much content was being uploaded.
Uploaded or had been uploaded total, you mean?
No,
Why were
per
people
year.
even doing that, dog?
That's not even counting the images. So I tested I found out, like I said, what millions of people already knew, and that was that all it took to upload was an email address. So in under 10 minutes, anybody with an iPhone, anywhere in the world, can upload a video, and they were not checking age, they were not checking ID to make sure that these are not children in the videos. They're not verifying consent to make sure that these are not rape or trafficking victims. And because of that, I quickly understood that Pornhub was not a porn site, it was a crime scene. Like, it was infested with videos of real sexual crime.
What were some of the crimes that you saw
crazy.
happening? What were some specific instances that you were like, oh my God, this is just...
Yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah, of course. And I think it's important to share, because I think a lot of times people want to just dismiss it and say, what you saw was just consensual. You just didn't really understand that it was, these were obvious.
Yeah, it's vague
crimes.
until you make it specific, I feel like. A lot
Right.
of
So, for example, I can tell you some victim stories. I can tell you some of the things. And one of the worst things that I saw on the site was an instance where it was a young Asian woman, and she was drugged so completely that her body was completely limp. She was unconscious, and there was a masked assailant who actually, to prove to the camera that she was unconscious, he was lifting her eyelids and touching her eyeballs to prove that she wasn't responsive, and then tickling her feet and doing things like that. And then the title was in Chinese. And so what I did was I took the title and I put it into Google Translate, and the title was Dead Pig Unconscious After Being Drugged. And it included eyes half open after being drugged. Like, that was the actual title of the video. And then, of course, because there's the algorithm, right? They have set up the algorithm to make sure if you see one video like that, they're going to assume that you like that content. So then they're going to take you on a crazy rabbit hole. I call it just hellhole of rape. Like, that's what it was. And then you go and they'll show you more and more of the same kind of thing,
And so then the people would upload them and then make money, off of advertising on them somehow? Or who
Yes. Yeah. So the ones that were making money off of this content, because this is free porn, right?
Right.
Free porn's not free, right? It is heavily monetized with ads. So they were selling 4.6 billion ad impressions on Pornhub every single day. So they were heavily monetizing this content. Now, the people who were uploading were doing it mostly for free. Like,
right.
80% of people who are uploading were just doing it for social currency, like likes and clicks and comments and shares and all of that. The reason why people upload to social media. Some of them were doing pay to download content where they could actually do profit sharing with Pornhub. That was happening as well. But most of the money made from free porn is actually made by the corporation running the site, right? Okay. So by the end of December 2020, so they had grown to be the 5th most visited website in the entire world. So not just porn site, website. They had 170 million visits per day, 62 billion visits per year. And like I said, enough content uploaded every year would take 169 years to watch. So they had 56 million pieces of content on the site by the end of 2020. And this was the year that Trafficking Hub Movement began. So go back to the story. So I made this discovery.
Oh my God.
And I said,
massive.
I literally said what you just said. Oh my God. This site is infested with videos of rape, trafficking, non-consensual content. We used to call it revenge porn, but we call it image-based sexual abuse. And I have to sound the alarm on this. I have to tell people what's going on. So I did, the only thing that I could do at the time was I took to it was Twitter, right? At the time, Twitter. And I started to share this information, share the stories, share what I discovered about the upload process. And in a burst of inspiration, I shared the hashtag Trafficking Hub. Per definition, so by definition, any sex act that is commercialized and it's involving a child, or any sex act that's induced by force, fraud, or coercion, and it's commercialized, so it's for profit, like it's something of value is exchanged for that sex act, it is per definition an act of trafficking. So every child being abused on Pornhub, every adult who was non-consenting, who was raped and trafficked, those are instances of trafficking. I don't think people quite understand that, but that is per international definition and domestic definition. And so that's why I launched the Trafficking Hub hashtag. And it slowly started to catch on. I had a few thousand followers on Twitter at the time, but people were horrified to find this out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think when you hear trafficking, you kind of think I picture literally like a train, like people commandeered from other countries, or, I guess younger people that have commandeered and kidnapped in like a train car going across the country in the night or something. Like, I think of it as a more, or like people like being smuggled across the border, or, I don't think of it as, I guess the average person doesn't think of it in such a common kind of, I don't know if it's common is the word. I guess, yeah, the average person probably doesn't think of that it's that expansive.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the way it's portrayed in Hollywood movies. And that's the way that it happens often, right? Sometimes. But, the amount of trafficking going on, if you think about non-consensual commercialized sex acts, this is massive.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. We found out that they only had one person. So they had 1,800 employees. They hired one person 5 days a week to be reviewing videos flagged by users as terms of service violations, including rape and trafficking and child abuse. One person. They had a policy where they wouldn't even review a video unless it was flagged 15 times. Wow. Now, think about this. You're a victim. Say there's a child victim like Serena. She would have to flag her video over 15 times because it had to be over 15 for it to be reviewed in order for that to even be put in queue for review. And they had a backlog of 706,000 videos.
That were just waiting for this one person to review them?
Yes. And they had, like we've discovered now in a recent filing in December of 2024, we found out specific instances of prepubescent child victims who had their videos on there for years, and they would have like 14 flags, 13 flags. And they just like, that was the policy. And then the CEO and the executives.
All of this on Pornhub?
Yes. On Pornhub.
The biggest website in the world.
And so I'm just grateful that we're having this conversation, because I bet most of the people who are listening to your show had no idea.
Yeah.
That this was happening, that it's ever happened, that this is an issue on user-generated free porn sites. And
they keep it up because it's content, right? Like you're saying, the more content.
Yes. Content is king.
Right.
They don't want to remove content because that's how they have inventory. So here's another like egregious example of how they did this was, so, you know, there's one case that I talk about in my book where there was a case of a clearly prepubescent child who is being anally raped in a video, and she is being tortured. The tags on the video, so the titles and tags were describing her abuse, that she was young, that she was being tortured, all of this. And we reported the video. We tried to get it down. Weeks go by. It's not coming down. Video view counts going up. We reach out to the FBI. They demand that it comes down. So they connect with the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children, who confirms this is a child. So they demanded the video come down. Okay. And then what they did was they took the video down, but they left that black box up that said at the request of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And they left the URL live, the tags, the titles, the views, all of that. And they did that with so many videos. Why would they take the video down but leave all of that up? And it's because it's inventory. It's the click, it's the URL.
Right, it still shows like an ad company that they're going to sell to. It still says, well, we have this many videos.
So you could search that,
we have
right?
The most videos.
Yeah, the tags, the titles, like they'll still come up in Google search. Then you'll get to the site. You won't find that particular video, but the algorithm will then direct you to others that are similar, and it will advertise to you, right? You'll get those ad views. The videos that are on Pornhub right now are still unverified, mostly unverified. So that 5.2 million left, they had verified the uploaders, right? But not the individuals in the videos. So that doesn't work because often the abuser is the uploader. And I'll give you an example. So there's a man named Rocky Shea Franklin out of Alabama.
Names out here.
And he drugged and he overpowered and he raped a 12-year-old boy. And he filmed those assaults and he uploaded 23 of those videos to Pornhub with titles that indicated this was abuse. Like young, it said like Uncle Secret. I mean, I won't say the worst things, but it was clear, right? He was put in prison for 40 years for what he did. Police reached out multiple times to Pornhub to try to get those videos down. They were ignored for 7 months. Those videos stayed online getting hundreds of thousands of views. That boy is suing Pornhub today. So he's one of those many victims suing Pornhub. But Rocky was a verified uploader. He had shown his ID and
they know who he is.
They know who he is, but they didn't verify clearly, right? Like who's in the video, right? So even today, you know, as of 2024, Pornhub had to produce a report. They sent it into the European, there's a European law called the Digital Services Act. And in 2024, in 4.5 months, they had to take down 3,770 child sexual abuse videos from the site and over 8,000 non-consensual and rape videos from the site. Okay, so
but they're having to be legally asked to do this, right?
Yeah, they had to disclose.
He's like, but they had to be asked to do
and
this.
Today, so we found out they kept deleting content, right? So today they have actually deleted 91% of the entire site. So they went from 56 million pieces of content in 2020 when this started to 5.2 million pieces of content today. And we're not done because they still have unverified content on the site.
Right.
So, yeah, fight's
Wow,
not over yet.
congratulations.
But
it's fast. I mean, congratulations.
That's crazy.
what's important is victims receive the justice they need for healing.
That's a lot of
and to be a deterrent to future abusers. Like one of the most important things in the fight against trafficking is not just to rescue victims, right? And to rehabilitate them. That's important. But to prevent it from happening in the future. And how do you prevent it? You have to increase risk and eliminate profitability. You have to make the risk of continued exploitation greater than the benefit that these executives get by maintaining the status quo. And then when you do that and you end impunity for these abusers, you become a deterrent to future abusers. Because
explain that little part to me again.
So you want to hold these companies fully accountable to the full extent of the law. To me, that means Pornhub gets shut down. Like we go from 91% to 100%. They do not exist anymore because they have been destroying the lives of countless victims since 2007 when they came online. And when that happens, other websites owned by other executives will say, we don't want to end up in that position.
Right,
so let's just clean ourselves up because we can make a lot of money on legal content. Have to monetize illegal content. We can do this in a way where we're not distributing sexual crime, and they'll do that because they want to avoid losing the credit card companies. They want to avoid litigation. They want to avoid criminal
just greed at a certain point is some type of obviously
it's risk.
Sick.
It's risk benefit, right?
Yeah, but a sickness too to think that you would be able to know that that's happening, right?
Right.
And keep going. That's it's like what type of sickness exists? You know, I mean, it's almost like a hell. You're like a slave trader of people's like solitude and peace, you know. But no, you know, I don't know. I just can't. I can't even.
Right. It's so much to even take.
I can't imagine that. I can't fathom that someone would be like, "Yeah, this is okay. I'm not gonna. That's not gonna be the first thing I'm gonna worry about with my company, right?"
Yeah. And actually, as of September of 2024, Pornhub, after being criminally charged, right, and have this monitor over their site, they're finally saying that we're going to start verifying the age and consent of those who are in the videos as of September of 2024.
How?
However, they still have millions of videos that were uploaded prior to that time. They don't know.
That they don't know.
Yeah, the whole thing is just crazy. There's a lot of people, a lot of bread, so many videos. And it's like the craziest part is just the terms and the words and the hashtags that are even searchable. It's like, dog, like, why are videos even being posted like this? And then to find out that most of their content is user-generated free content. The times, diabolical. Jesus save.